Welcome to Unexplained Encounters, where the unknown meets reality. Today, we take you deep inside one of the world's greatest mysteries, the Great Pyramid of Khufu. But this is no ordinary exploration. What lies within these ancient stones? Curses, spirits, and a photographer's journey into the terrifying unknown. Could the dark forces buried here still be alive today? Before we begin, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below if you believe in the mysteries of ancient Egypt. Now, join us as we uncover the haunting of the Great Pyramid, curses, spirits, and the shadows of the past. Jack Harris was a highly respected photographer, particularly skilled in capturing the mysteries of ancient ruins. His career had started with a random assignment for an archaeological shoot, sparking his deep interest in ancient civilizations. As his career progressed, Jack gradually delved into the world's most enigmatic sites, always searching for the hidden stories and energies embedded in these ancient locations. Recently, however, Jack felt like he had hit a creative plateau. That was, until he received a mysterious assignment. This job came from an internationally renowned archaeology magazine. They wanted Jack to travel to Egypt to photograph sections of the Great Pyramid of Khufu that had never been publicly revealed. The brief mentioned strange symbols carved into the stone blocks and rumors of ancient curses. Though skeptical about the supernatural aspect, Jack's curiosity got the better of him. Upon arriving in Egypt, Jack met his partner for the mission, Sarah Martin, a young, talented historian and psychic. Sarah had been able to communicate with spirits since she was a child, though she had always been met with skepticism. It wasn't until she immersed herself in the study of ancient Egyptian culture that she discovered her deep connection to the pyramid through a past life. During the car ride, Sarah shared her research on the pyramid stones and explained her spiritual connection with them. Since childhood, Sarah had been drawn to the pyramid by an unexplainable force. In her dreams, she repeatedly returned to ancient Egypt, where she saw herself as a princess. Her mission, she explained, had been to guard a powerful, mysterious force. "The unfinished tasks from my past life still haunt me," she said. "This time, I have to face them." Jack found himself both puzzled and uneasy. He had never encountered anything like this before, but Sarah's unwavering belief and intensity made him wonder if there was more to the pyramid's secrets than he had ever imagined. As they drove towards the Giza Plateau, Sarah began explaining the history of the Great Pyramid to Jack. The Pyramid of Khufu, also known as the Great Pyramid, was built over 4,000 years ago and remains one of the most iconic structures in the world. It consists of over 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing between 2 and 30 tons. Despite standing for thousands of years, the pyramid's construction methods and purpose remain a mystery. While it's widely believed that the pyramid was built as a tomb for the pharaoh Khufu, no pharaoh's body has ever been found inside, adding to the pyramid's enigmatic aura. As they neared the pyramid, Sarah's tone became more somber. "There are many rumors about the stones of the Great Pyramid," she said quietly, as if sharing a long-forgotten curse. "Rumors?" Jack asked, intrigued but still skeptical. "Yes," Sarah continued, "some people believe that the stones are more than just building materials. The symbols carved into them are not just decorative, they're spells, created to seal away something dark." Jack frowned, but didn't dismiss it outright. "Like what?" "There was a famous archaeologist in the early 20th century, Sarah explained, who attempted to decipher these symbols. He believed they were meant to bind the spirits of ancient priests who practiced powerful black magic. "And what happened to him?" Jack asked. "He never returned," Sarah said, her voice lowering. "He vanished during a night expedition. His tent was found intact, but there was no sign of him. All they found was the last line in his journal, 'They're still here.'" Jack shivered despite the heat of the desert, but he tried to shake it off. "Sounds like a tall tale." "Maybe he ran into some grave robbers," Sarah smiled faintly. "Maybe, but that's not the only story. She went on to recount how workers during the pyramid's construction had died mysteriously. Some simply vanished without a trace, while others were found dead beside the stones, their bodies rigid and faces frozen in terror, as though they had seen something horrifying in their final moments. Thousands of years ago, Jack asked, trying to downplay the unsettling feeling creeping over him. Yes, Sarah replied, but the stories never stopped. Some say certain stones are cursed, sealing away ancient spirits. Anyone who tries to break the seal, or even enters the restricted areas, risks awakening the curse. Jack felt a growing sense of unease. He still didn't believe the rumors, but he couldn't help noticing the chill in the air, even under the scorching sun. When Jack and Sarah arrived at the pyramid, they were met by a local guide, an elderly Egyptian man with a weathered face, who was cautious from the start. The guide had been leading them through the public areas of the pyramid, the ones open to tourists, but Sarah and Jack weren't satisfied with that. "We've heard there are areas of the pyramid that aren't open to the public," Sarah said, her tone probing. "Is there any way we could get access?" The guide's face darkened. "Those places are off limits. The government strictly forbids anyone from entering, especially the dangerous areas." Jack exchanged a glance with Sarah, knowing she wouldn't be willing to give up. He approached the guide, discreetly slipping him some cash. "We just want a quick look," Jack whispered. "We won't cause any trouble." The guide hesitated, greed flickering in his eyes. He glanced around to make sure no one was watching, then lowered his voice. "All right, but be careful. These areas have never been fully explored, and they aren't safe. No one knows what might be inside." After some hushed negotiations, the guide agreed to take them into the restricted zones. They followed him through a hidden passage, deep into the heart of the pyramid. As their footsteps echoed down the narrow stone path, the air grew damp, and the temperature dropped. The walls were covered in ancient symbols, etched into the stone thousands of years ago. The guide led them to a sealed stone door. "This is one of the areas the government forbids anyone to enter," he whispered. "No one knows what lies beyond. There are rumors it leads to an underground chamber, but no one dares confirm it." Sarah stood before the door, her face pale. She felt something stirring deep within her, a fear from her past life. She reached out, tracing the symbols carved into the stone. This is where I was tormented in my past life," she murmured. Holding back the pain from her memories, Sarah told Jack, "These stones hold the power of the priests. Through them, I can return to my past life and finish what I started." She picked up a few smaller stones from the ground and arranged them in an ancient pattern on the floor, forming a simple ritual circle. Jack watched in fascination, though a deep sense of unease gnawed at him. "This is a ritual," Sarah explained. "Through these stones, I can connect to my past and confront what I left unfinished, and the spirits that still linger." She sat cross-legged in the center of the stone formation, closed her eyes, and began chanting softly in an ancient language. Jack stood nearby, watching her closely. He wanted to get closer, but each time he approached the circle, it felt like an invisible force was pushing him back. As Sarah's chant grew louder, her body began to tremble. Sweat beaded on her forehead, and her breath became ragged. The air in the chamber grew thick with an oppressive energy, as if the stones themselves were releasing some long-dormant power. Through the lens of his camera, Jack watched the symbols on the stones flicker and shift. He tried to capture everything, but his hands trembled with fear. Suddenly, Sarah's body jerked violently, her face contorted in pain. "They're waiting for me," she gasped, her voice barely audible. Sarah's consciousness drifted away from her body, plunging her deep into her past life. She was no longer in the pyramid. She had been transported back to ancient Egypt. In that life, she had been a priestess, responsible for guarding a powerful force. But this force was not just something she protected, it was also a nightmare. The spirits had tried to control her, tormenting her soul, using her to return to the living world. Now, these spirits had awakened once again, determined to seize control of her. She stood at an ancient altar, surrounded by shadows, the dark spirits circling her, growling with deep, guttural voices. They were ready to devour her, to consume her soul. She tried chanting the sacred words she had once used to seal them away, but with each incantation, the spirits grew stronger. She could feel her soul being torn apart, the agony flooding over her like a tidal wave. In the physical world, Jack watched in horror as Sarah's body writhed uncontrollably. Her lips moved in a low, incoherent murmur, her face twisted in torment. Jack had no idea what she was experiencing, but he knew it was beyond anything he could understand. "They're trying to take my soul," Sarah's voice rasped, her fists clenched as she fought back against the invisible forces. Then, as abruptly as it began, Sarah's body stilled. The oppressive atmosphere in the chamber lifted. Her hands fell limply to her sides, and her breathing slowed. She opened her eyes slowly, exhaustion and calm etched into her features. "I did it," she whispered weakly. Jack approached her cautiously, confusion written all over his face. "What happened?" Sarah didn't answer directly. She stared at him, her eyes filled with a strange mix of emotions. "I fought them. I finished what I was meant to do." Jack felt a flicker of relief. Though he still didn't fully believe what she had gone through, he had seen her body react violently during the ritual, and nothing about it had seemed like ordinary meditation. Maybe she had experienced something truly supernatural. They decided to leave the pyramid quickly. As they exited the tomb, Jack felt a heavy weight lift from his shoulders, though the memories of what he had seen remained vivid. He pulled out his camera, eager to review the footage. Maybe the recordings would provide answers to his many questions. He scrolled through the previous recordings on the screen, but when he reached the footage from inside the tomb, the screen suddenly went blank. All the images of Sarah's battle with the spirits, the glowing stones, and the shifting symbols had disappeared. Jack's hands trembled as he frantically searched through the files. No matter what he did, the footage was gone. It was as if none of it had ever happened. "This can't be real," he muttered, his voice shaky. He knew what he had seen was real, but with no evidence. It was impossible to prove. Sarah approached him, her expression calm, as though she had anticipated this. "Some things can't be captured by technology," she said softly. Jack was overwhelmed with confusion and unease. Had it all been an illusion? Or had something truly supernatural occurred, beyond his understanding? After a long pause, Sarah added quietly, "I may have finished my past life's task, but the spirits are still there. They won't be sealed so easily. Someday, they might awaken again." A cold shiver ran down Jack's spine. He knew this journey would leave an indelible mark on him, and the blank screen seemed to symbolize a truth he would never fully grasp. When Jack returned home, he tried to push the experience out of his mind, but the missing footage haunted him and a recurring nightmare. He couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw flashes of Sarah's face twisted in agony, the glowing symbols, and the powerful force they had unleashed. He tried to rationalize everything, convincing himself that it was nothing more than exhaustion-induced hallucinations. But deep down, he knew better. Every time he let his mind wander, he heard Sarah's whispered chants from the ritual. The spirit's curses still echoed in his ears, like a lingering presence in the back of his mind. As time passed, his dreams became more vivid, more real. In his dreams, he found himself back in the pyramid, watching Sarah fight the spirits. The scenes were even more terrifying than in reality. He saw black liquid dripping down the walls, faces of trapped souls screaming and clawing at the stone, desperate to escape their eternal prison. In the dreams, Sarah's face grew pale, her eyes hollow, and her voice cracked as she murmured, "They're waiting for me. I can't escape." Jack woke from these nightmares drenched in sweat, his heart racing. The memories of the ritual had imprinted themselves so deeply in his subconscious that they wouldn't let him go. He tried reaching out to Sarah, but she never answered her phone. Weeks later, Jack received an email from the archaeology magazine, asking about the progress of his shoot at the pyramid. Jack hesitated. He couldn't tell them the truth, the footage was gone. And even if it weren't, how could he explain the strange events he had witnessed? In the end, he decided to remain silent. Jack tried to move on with his life, but no matter how hard he tried, the memory of the experience hung over him like a shadow. Desperate for answers, he began to investigate Sarah's background. He searched online, trying to dig up any information he could about her, but what he found or didn't find only deepened his unease. There was almost nothing about Sarah. Aside from a few articles she had published as a historian, there was very little public information about her. Stranger still, it seemed as though Sarah had vanished from the public eye altogether, as if she had never existed. Jack's confusion grew. Had Sarah truly defeated the spirits, or had they claimed her? Had she always been something more than just a historian? Was she, in fact, an agent of some supernatural force from the very beginning? He recalled how Sarah had talked about her unfinished task from her past life. Was her ritual in the pyramid really about completing her mission, or had she been trying to release something more powerful? With his mind swirling with questions, Jack contacted an expert on ancient Egyptian culture, hoping for clarity. When Jack described Sarah's ritual, the expert grew tense. The symbols and rituals she performed are tied to ancient Egyptian taboos, the expert explained, a look of unease crossing his face. These rituals were meant to seal away something unseen, something that should never be released. Jack's unease deepened. He realized this was far beyond anything he could comprehend. Months passed, and Jack's life slowly returned to normal, but the shadow of what he had experienced never fully disappeared. Whenever he walked down the street or entered a quiet room, he felt an invisible presence watching him. One night, as Jack was organizing the photos he had taken at the pyramid, he suddenly heard a low whisper from downstairs. The sound was faint, but it was unmistakable. It was the same chant Sarah had uttered in the tomb, the spirit's curse, spoken in a language he couldn't understand. Heart pounding, Jack rushed downstairs, but the room was empty. His house was deathly silent, as though the sound had been nothing more than a figment of his imagination. But Jack knew better. It hadn't been his imagination. The spirits were still there, lurking, waiting. Jack realized that he had never truly escaped the curse. The spirits had followed him, tying his fate to Sarah's, and wherever he went, their presence would follow him. They wouldn't stop until they found a new host or were freed from their eternal prison. In the final scene, Jack stared at the blank screen on his camera, haunted by the missing footage, and filled with an overwhelming sense of dread. He knew the experience would stay with him forever until he could bear it no more. Thank you for watching this terrifying journey through the ancient mysteries of Khufu's pyramid. We hope it kept you on the edge of your seat. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more spine-chilling tales. Your support means the world to us. Stay curious, stay safe, and remember, sometimes the scariest things are those we cannot see. Until next time, take care.